Hello and welcome to part 3 of our Project Frigate build series. If you want to check out the first 2 builds, go ahead and click the link that's on the screen right now on the top right, or of course there will be some links for both builds at the end of today's video. Now on the first 2 builds, I did focus solely on culverins, mainly because the culverins are getting the most love on this ship along with demi-cannons. If you equip these on your broadsides, you get up to 13 per side, and if you put them on the bow, you're getting 6. So of course, if you're someone who likes to just shred your enemies with volume, that's the way that you want to go, and that's exactly what we did at first. But with survivability being one of the things this ship is the absolute worst at, even though it is a tank, I thought that it was a good time to focus on that. Now, the reason that it is so bad at surviving is because of the obvious. It is extremely large and slow. And if you go into any solo content, you being the only big giant ass large slow moving target out there, you're not only going to be absorbing cannon fire, you're also going to take on a lot of status effects. And once they all activate at once, it can feel like you're getting hit by triple, even quadruple the damage that you usually should be taking. And it just ends up being an even worse time, considering that our restoration kits and med kits all have cooldown times of 60 seconds or more, depending on what you're running. So yeah, it just all can work out to just not be a very good time, especially in the frigate. But as you've been seeing on screen for the last few minutes, try as she might, Li Tianning just is not going to crack the whole of the last word. The last word will be having the last word in this confrontation as far as I'm concerned. Well, I'll be honest, right towards the end, a friendly captain did try to come and help out, but for 97% of this fight, I basically took her down myself. I will be posting a full clear along with this video, so if you are someone who's interested in that, yeah, you can watch me go through some of the slowest combat that I've ever done before, because man, I'm just very out of practice with these torpedoes. But let us go ahead and get into what you're seeing on screen and why it is so damn effective. Now, as always, we start these with the ship description, so let's do that one more time for my frigate, the last word. So of course, our large ship has unmatched defenses as a tank, but the big draw is that it radiates a powerful aura that fortifies allies. What that means is that any ship that is not also a large ship will get a 10% damage reduction. Now, when the frigate gets attacked, it'll build up grit, and once it gets 10 stacks of grit, it'll take that 10% damage reduction and change it into a 20% damage reduction instead, while also giving armor to the frigate itself. At 10 stacks of grit though, you also get resolve. 10% brace strength is what gets restored anytime you activate resolve, but, and put a pin in this, this also decreases your status effect damage by 20% and increases your threat generation. Of course, we get Colossal, Abundant, Gun Ports, and Deep Sea, your normal perks, but that's what we start with. The armor and clear star of the build is going to be the Tanasha. Its Dark Meditation perk will reduce the buildup of negative status effects by 10% every second while you are bracing. If the status is active, well then the duration is just reduced instead. You also get a reduction to the piercing status as well by 25%. I hate piercing, so I love this. But that's what you're seeing on screen right now, that weird pulse that comes from the ship that happens when I'm bracing, and it clears out the status effects. And as you see, it does it pretty quickly. None of these things are going to stay on my ship for longer than 5 seconds, 6, 7 maybe at most, and then I'm back in action. All while not even having to use one single restoration kit. Now, if you did miss buying this piece of furniture last week, no worries, it should be back before the season ends, the emergency locker. This will reduce the duration of all damaging status effects applied to your ship by 50%, but it will increase the damage of those effects by 15%. It also reduces the incoming secondary damage by 10% and increases your max hull health by 6%. Now remember that resolve node I told you to pin down earlier? Go ahead and take a look at that, because it should tell you that every time resolve activates, it decreases status effect damage by 20%. Now, you are increasing the damage you're taking by 15% with the emergency locker. But every time resolve activates, it's going to clear that out completely and leave you with a 5% damage reduction to those status effects. Now, sure, 5% isn't a lot, but it ain't negative 15, and it's why you're not going to be really seeing any negative effects from the emergency locker with this build. Because once you take damage and the status effects happen, that's when resolve is going to kick in and essentially clear out the negative part of the emergency locker bit. So, just wanted to point that out. You can go ahead and throw that note away. We're done with that one. Now, since this build requires a large amount of bracing under the effects of various statuses, I'm going to recommend the company Spirit's Locker here, because this will reduce the crew stamina depletion at the start of bracing by 20% while you are affected by statuses. You also get an increase to your brace strength by 15%, and we're going to boost our armor rating by 7%. Next piece of furniture is the beam supports. It's a pretty basic piece of furniture. It's just going to increase our hull health and armor rating by 7% each. But this is also going to be followed by the company screens. This will reduce incoming area of effect damage from enemy ships by 20% and reduce burning charge by 10%, which isn't really that big a deal. But again, another increase to our max hull health. I hope you are starting to see a pattern here. Rounding off our build will be the Tuning Station 1. This will increase the secondary damage of our torpedoes by 20%, increase the speed of them by 13%, and will restore 10% of our crew stamina when we're out of combat. And we also have the Torpedo Works 1, which will increase the secondary damage by 19%. Oh, and if you were curious about the extra health that we were getting from that furniture, yeah, that adds up to 151,512 hull health, while also our furniture got our brace strength up to 50,461. Not too shabby, especially considering that our armor is going to fluctuate as well. We have ourselves a healthy vessel right here. Now, I have equipped the brand new HELLGATE Serpent torpedoes on this build. Of course, you can go with whatever torpedoes that you like, but since we're worried about survivability here, I do recommend putting these on because you're getting Spirit Mending. 20% of the damage you deal will restore your whole health, and it increases by 5% for every 50 meters you are away from the target, up to a maximum of 50%. That is not too bad, especially considering you can roll in additional soul mending, and I did that here, giving myself 5 and 6% per side, which again increases by 50% once the perk starts to activate. I also went with reach and amplified flooding, which of course will help me hit targets from a little bit of far away, and I think that flooding is the better of the two perks that the weapon comes with. You do get fire and flooding. Fire damage, you're gonna do plenty of that on your own with the torpedoes, but flooding damage is crucial because you can start to gain extra damage on a target once they're flooded, because they take severe damage, and you can't heal severe damage unless the devs are allowing the NPCs to heal severe damage when they're getting healed by their healing units, which I hope is not the case. But regardless, as stated, still feel that flooding damage is going to be the role you'll want to focus towards when you're ascending, rather than burning damage in this situation. On the bow of my ship, and currently not available in the game right now, I have the hell ports. I get 6 of these because they are culverins, and I roll double soul mending into them along with a little bit of extra damage. Just because of how that is set up, I feel like that is a perfect weapon for this build. This may be something you'll have to sacrifice since they're not available, but that's what I'm using at this time, along with Nash cars on the stern. They get that boost anytime you hit a weak point. They'll give you 700% more healing. So I only put 1 soul mending into this, along with some extra burning and extra damage. Of course, my auxiliary weapon, I have just essentially doubled down on the repair mortar all season. It's just too good. My first slot, I went with fixed to give me a little bit of extra healing with restorative and long arm. Restorative will take care of any severe damage I get. So if that happens, I have no problem with clearing it out, since the frigate gives me 2 freaking shots of mortars to help heal myself with. And of course, if I need to help a captain far away from me, they can take advantage of the long arm perk and get some additional healing. Now, if you've made it this far into the video, I want you to take a look at the food on screen and gather yourself up some raw chicken, some bananas, and water flasks, and fill your ship up to the brim with the Ndizi Nanyama. This will reduce your brace strength consumption at the start of bracing by 30%. It'll increase your brace strength by 10%, and it will increase your stamina regen by 30%. This is honestly the only food, other than, you know, your general stamina regeneration food, that I have on my ship. I no longer use any of the stamina boosting food because, to be quite honest, I don't need it, since the new sailing profiles or new, you know, sailing update happened with season 2. The ships are wonderful right now. They feel pretty great, and I just really don't have a hard time keeping the stamina of the crew full, you know, outside of combat. Inside of combat is totally different, and that's when you want the food that I just mentioned on screen. So kind of keep that in mind. Now, the build you are seeing has some very small inspirations from a build that you may have seen on the channel before. Last season, for our big build video, we featured 4 different builds, and we had a community build, or a community submission by good old Captain Chesta. He's someone who you have probably heard me talk about quite a bit on the channel. He's someone who comments, of course, on the videos, and of course is a part of the Discord that I belong to, the Moonshine Armada. He came up with the idea of using the emergency locker and the Tanasha, or maybe he came up with the idea of it. I'm sure plenty of other people probably thought of the same thing, but he was the first person that mentioned it to me. And with that build that he put together, I used it, and that shit was damn effective. When I noticed that the frigate also had a little bit of a, you know, status effect clearing ability kind of baked into it, I thought to myself, I was like, man, I cannot wait to try this build out. And when I did, it worked, but it was just missing something, and that's when we were lucky enough to have this event hit, and the Dark Tide Lullaby gifted us with these wonderful torpedoes. Now, some of you are going to want to make some changes, and as you can hopefully see in this build, I've left 2 spots of furniture for you. The last 2 pieces, the torpedo furniture, if you don't want to run torps, take both of those shits off and put on 2 pieces of furniture that are more to your liking. If you like to set things on fire, if you're working more with the Stormstruck, whatever, explosive, whatever, just go ahead and add those pieces of furniture on that work with your playstyle. Otherwise, I wager most of you will probably go with what I've shown you, or you're probably going to slap on Dahakas or Ramas. That way you can get a little bit more extra damage. Hey, do what you do, but just remember the constant incoming healing. You will be totally missing out on that unless you plan on rolling soul mending into those weapons, which chances are I don't think that's the type of shit you're going to be doing. But with that being said, that is it, Captain. I like this build. I'm not going to lie. I am terrible with the torpedoes right now with this ship. I'm not sure what's going on. My brain just can't aim with these yet. But I do feel like I am going to spend a lot of time with this build because, man, being able to just survive some of the dumber shit that you have to put up with this game is very, very enjoyable. And this is a very easy way to go about it. We should be getting Hellports next month. The Halloween event is when we got them last year, and unless these developers just really plan on being like aggressively cursed at by the community next month by not adding these in with the Halloween event, I suspect that everyone should be able to get their hands on some Hellports. It should be time, so don't worry about, not having them right now. They should be available for you soon enough. But I'm done waffling, I'm done rambling. I am gonna wrap this shit up. As always, I have been Captain Cash the Stampede, and of course, you know what it is. We'll see you in the seas. Take it easy, Captain.